Welcome back to the Days of Thunder, written by Wondrous Wendy, narrated by Ranger Zath. Chapter 4. Trying to find what it is I need. I can sleep in the car after I clean up. Darling snorts and moves past him, pulling off his coat and hanging it on a stand by the door. Nonsense. Ruby warned me that bears sometimes come around at night, looking for food. He pats Trench's shoulder. Don't worry, he teases. I don't snore, and I don't toss and turn. Somehow Darling has found the silver lining to all this where Trench cannot. Casper, Trench warns through gritted teeth. What? Darling raises a brow. For being a genius, he's quite oblivious. It isn't a full moon, so you're not going to transform tonight. Trench closes his eyes in frustration. That isn't funny. Okay, well, what's wrong? Darling shrugs. I know it's not the first time you've had to bunk with someone else. Rooted in place, Trench pulls off his glasses to rub at his tired eyes. So Darling's really gonna force him to explain, then, bringing down the new director a peg or two. It's the first time since Kate left that I'll be... Darling stops removing his boots and glances toward his friend. Ah, I see. Trench puts his glasses back on and shifts his weight. Where is he supposed to begin? It's got nothing to do with you, he insists. I know it's foolish. It isn't, Darling asserts, frowning. I get it, Zach. Mentioning Kate means implicitly mentioning Susanna, which then ultimately refers to what happened late last year. Work followed him home in ways he would have never expected, in ways he couldn't have prepared for. Only a few months into his tenure as the Bureau's new director, he royally fucked up. Something paranatural from the oldest house hurt his daughter. Kate refused to let him take Susanna to the Bureau, where he could have mobilized Darling and the rest of the research department to find a cure for her illness. While he couldn't blame his wife for having fears, he wishes he could have persuaded her in some way. The civilian doctors found themselves out of their depth, in the face of the unknown. Susanna died in an uncomfortable hospital bed, away from her home, away from her stuffed animals and her pet cat, with both of her parents watching the blips on the heart monitor slowly fade until they stopped. Of course, Kate left him. Their daughter's death was his fault, and he deserved the blame. Trench returned to work, garnering the surprise of his peers. He needed to keep moving, to drown himself in his duties as a director. When he wasn't forced to interact with others, he isolated himself in his office. He stopped returning to his house. It was empty, anyway. At his lowest moment, Darling found him standing at the firebreak with the service weapon in hand. Typically a man of many words, Darling only had a few to offer. Please don't. Sobered by just how close he had come to giving up and letting his team and the entirety of the Bureau down, Trench reined in his spiraling guilt. He needed to stay in control, to stay ahead of his worst demons hunting him down. I guess I'm just trying to warn you that I'm prone to tossing and turning in my sleep, Trench concedes. I'm sure it's not as bad as being mauled by a hungry mama bear. Trench laughs, his whole body shaking from the force of it. It must be infectious, because Darling joins in. With one stupid joke, the mood lightens. The leftover tension from their dinner conversation ebbs, and the dour thoughts of Kate dissipate. They each take turns in the small bathroom to use the shower and clean up after a day's worth of travel. While Darling showers, Trench stands in front of the open window to smoke and stares out into the dark void of the night sky. Smoking, as awful as it is for his health, has always helped him relax. Maybe this is more a vacation than a real investigation. Maybe there isn't actually a crisis brewing at the ski lodge. And maybe all that's fine for Trench in the end. As elaborate of a ruse as it could be, it shows that his team cares about his well-being. In turn, he has to lead them and keep the oldest house steady. The only person he's willing to fail is himself. When Darling comes out of the bathroom, Trench puts out his cigarette in the room's ashtray and passes him without a word. Trench takes a mindless, scalding shower, dries off, and then goes to the sink to trim his beard and mustache. As he confronts his reflection, he can't help but compare himself to Darling. His friend is only a few years younger, without any signs of gray hair. Trench, in turn, has started to look older than his actual age. He has started to gray near his temples and in his beard. He thought the changes made him look more austere, like the authority figure he had become. Perhaps too much in that direction, if he has become completely unapproachable. While he isn't exactly looking for attention, he considered himself handsome, at the very least. Kate seemed to think so, up until it all fell apart. Maybe he didn't have Darling's personality, or his boyish good looks, but he thought he hadn't let himself go entirely since becoming director. The waitress was all too willing to wrap herself around Darling's finger, until something had changed. In contrast, the owner of the motel acted friendly and welcoming, but she wasn't flirting with Darling. The woman seemed warm and bubbly, but he found her wink odd when she wished them a good evening. Trench runs a hand over his cleaned-up jaw and blinks slowly.
Ruby thought we were a couple.
He stands there, as stunned by this revelation as he was when he put together that Ahti, the janitor, was an actual Finnish god of the sea. Was Darling aware of what Ruby thought of them? Had he come to the same conclusion? If he had, did he care? Trench wipes his face with a hand towel, and then runs a hand over his hair to smooth down wild strands. His thoughts race as fast as his heart. What could have given Ruby that kind of impression so easily? Further, has anyone else shared similar impressions too? Has Marshall? Is that why she allowed Darling to come on this trip? Darling volunteered to accompany him on this case, according to him. Was there a deeper reason than simply wanting to look out for him? Memories of their friendship play in his mind. Before he had become director, before the loss of Kate and Susanna, they had always been close friends. When Darling joined the Bureau in 1995 to replace Theodore Ashe Jr., Trench helped him become familiar with the oldest house. They often ate lunch together. Trench had even helped Darling learn how to shoot a gun like a ranger in the training hall. Darling came over to the Trench household for dinners on occasion. In the past, Trench noticed moments that felt charged and tense between them. He assumed this was because he was Darling's superior in the greater chain of command within the Bureau. He had a tendency to come across as intimidating. That's how Director Northmore had often described him. In hindsight, Trench sees those moments in a new light. Lingering touches. Stolen glances. Something that Zachariah can only define as a longing in Casper's eyes. Gone all too quickly. If Casper had feelings for him, he never crossed the line. He respected his marriage to Kate, and showed no ill will towards her, even after the divorce. Trench looks hard at his reflection, wondering if the man in the mirror has answers. He finds nothing but an image inverted. So, instead of hiding in the bathroom, Trench heads back into the other room, wondering what the hell he's going to do with this knowledge. This is Ath, signing off until the next chapter. I'll see you back here next time with The Days of Thunder, a Control fanfic by Wondrous Wendy.